Morning and welcome back to the kitchen. If you're following me, you know we're in our days of counting down to Christmas with making various things for the Christmas celebrations. And yesterday I made the Rocky Road. So I thought before I get on to today's little video, making something else, I'll just show you what's happened. So the Rocky Road's now come out of the fridge. I left it in overnight actually, and I've just got it out the fridge. You can see they're very different. All right, the Biscoff one is much more gnarly and rocky and is more crumbly, I found. I think next year I might just play with this recipe a little bit and see if I can make it a little bit less crumbly. But that's that one, so I'm going to tip that one out first. Now, the advantage of, as I say, of these foil pans is that I can just turn them over and pull the foil back. There we go. And there's my block. You can see that. There's my block of Biscoff Rocky Road. So what I'm going to do is going to cut that in half. You need to sort of push it down and break through the biscuit. As I say, this one is much harder. The other one's much softer, as you'll see in a minute. But let me just get through this one. Here we go. Feel it crunch and break as you get through the biscuit. That last bit of biscuit. There we go. All right, and you can see there's your Rocky Road. So I will wrap those as two separate pieces, and then when I'm ready to serve them up, I just cut them into little cubes. Let me just show you one bit. Let me just cut one bit here. So just a little narrow cut here. Get quite a few bits out of each block. Cut that down. And then you can cut it into 3 or 2. I'll just cut this into 2 to show you. And there's your little piece of Rocky Road. And just put those out on a dish, and everyone loves those. So that's the Biscoff one, and I'll wrap those 2 pieces separately to go back into the fridge. And let's get the amaretti one out. So if you haven't seen me make these, check back on the videos. It's probably the one before this, or there might have been something else that's gone in between, I don't know. But let me just pull that one off, and you can see it has a very different appearance. It's not gnarly like the other one, and it will cut easier if you watch. I'll just cut down the middle. Oh, not much easier actually, to be fair. And I keep it in the fridge because you can keep it, once I put it out on a dish, I'll leave it out. But obviously the chocolate does start to soften once you've got it out. So, I thought this one would be easy to get through, but it's actually harder. That's it. No, we're there. I'll just show you what it looks like when it's cut. There we go. You can see the amaretti and the cherries and the... Right, so I'm going to get those wrapped and put away, and then I'll be back for today. And I think this morning I'm actually going to make some mince pies. I do different sorts of mince pies, so I'll talk you through that. But let me get these put away first, and then I'll be back. So today I'm going to be making mince pies. I'm going to make 2 types of mince pie. I do actually make 3 different types sometimes over Christmas. I've already made the crumb top ones, so and they're in the freezer, so I can show you a picture of those later on. But today I'm going to make my ordinary pastry topped, which I just put a star on the top, and I'm going to make my frangipane topped ones, which are a little bit more luxurious, and I tend to make those just at Christmas. And the family do love them. We all love almonds, so that's really nice. So before I can do anything else, I've got to make the pastry for the mince pies. Now, if you've been with me before, you'll know that I use a processor to make my pastry. 1, it's quicker. 2, about 10 years ago, I actually broke my right shoulder. I dislocated it and then broke it, and I had to have a major operation on it. didn't have the use of my right arm for several months. It also caused some nerve damage, which has weakened my right hand. So some of you may prefer to crumb your butter and your flour together, but because I haven't got much pressure in my right hand, I actually find that quite tiring. And with arthritis setting as well, oh, the joys of getting old, I just use the processor, okay? So, and I'm very fortunate, my processor actually has a scale on it, so I don't need to weigh it out beforehand. So I'm doing a double quantity. This will be enough for 2 dozen mince pies. So a double quantity of my pastry mix, so that's 350 of flour. You'll need more if you're going to do full, you're going to put full tops on them, but because I only do the stars and the second lot will have the frangipane, this will be plenty. So 350 of the flour, and then I need 150 of chilled butter. This comes straight out the fridge. I've just cubed it up. So I'm just going to put this in, and we want 150 of the butter. Just cubed it up so it's ready to break up into the flour, exactly as you would if you were going to hand make it. As I say, I just find it easier with the processor. The only thing with the processor, you have to make sure you don't overwork it. So we'll do this bit first. Right. So I'm just going to whiz that together to make it into the breadcrumbs, as you would if you were crumbing it with your hands. So hang on for a minute, because this makes a lot of noise. So that's now all crumbed like you would if you did it by hand, all right? I'm going to add to that some icing sugar, because this is for mince pies, so I want a sweet pastry. And for a sweet pastry, I add icing sugar. And for this double mix, that's just 50 grams of icing sugar. As most of you know, icing sugar is very light, so it's not a reasonable amount, 50 grams. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, just 2.5 spoonfuls. Yeah. Right, and I'm just going to put the lid on and give that another quick whisk, but I don't want to overwork it now, so just a light whisk just to mix it in. Right, the next thing I'm going to add is the zest of an orange. Once again, this is a Christmas pastry which is a little bit more special than your average pie pastry. So the zest of the orange just adds a little bit more of that seasonal flavour to things. So if you haven't seen me before, you'll know I've got this lovely new zester grater, which does a brilliant job. I just want to make sure I don't grate my fingers as well. I'm just going to zest this orange. I put this in while it's still, while everything's still dry, because then it will mix with the flour. Once you add the egg, which is what the liquid's going to be, it can get a bit, the orange zest can get a bit clagged up. So, well, there. Right. Right, once again, just another quick whiz to spread that through. Right, and then I'm actually going to leave this on because I have a funnel I can feed through. Right, the only other thing now I need is an egg, just the egg yolk, not the egg white. I find if I add the white as well, the pastry goes a little bit too chewy. Not leathery as such, but it's not as crumbly as I'd like it. So it's just the yolk. So separate that out. And then I can use the white, if I don't break my yolk. I can use the, I can use the white to put over the top of the, pies, the ones with the stars, to give them a bit of a golden hue. So let me just whiz that in. Right, and then you're probably going to need a little bit more liquid, so you can use cold water, or you can use the orange juice. So I'm just going to cut my orange in half and add a bit of orange juice in there as well. I'm just going to squeeze it by hand because I don't need huge amounts, so I'll just do this half first and see what I get out of it. It's probably going to be enough, but let's see. No, I think because it's a double quantity, I probably need most of this orange juice. I do have a juicer, which I can go and get in a minute if I need it, but let's see if we can see if this is enough. You see what I mean? My hand doesn't have the strength in it that it used to have. But I'm getting most of that out. Right, that should be it, I think. And let me see how well that's coming together. Right, I think because it's a large quantity, I'm just going to add a little bit of cold water as well. It's just a tablespoon of cold water as well. Right, now I can see, I'll just show you, it's beginning to form around the edges, which means it will come together. So at this point, you can just keep whizzing it until it all comes together, but I find it's not so crumbly if I do that, so I try not to overwork it. But, you know, it's okay. Everyone still always says, well, how lovely they are. I don't think they really notice the difference. It's just me being fussy. Right, so I'm going to tip this out now. And then I'm just going to start to bring it together. And you can see that's now coming together into a pastry. Can you see that? I'm just going to work that for a bit. If it doesn't hold, then I can always add another little bit of water. But if I keep it as crumbly as possible, it'll be a much shorter pastry for my... Usually it starts to work. There we go. There we go. We're coming together now. This might still be a bit short. It's always the time, isn't it? When you film it, it's the one time it doesn't actually go like it normally does. But there you go. You're getting there. There we go. It's coming together. Just getting that to hold. Right, nearly there. Just roll this over the rest of it now. And then what I'll do with this is I'll put it in a plastic bag and pop it in the fridge for about half an hour so it gets a little bit more set, comes together, and it will make it a bit easier for rolling out because it will chill the butter again and put the structure back into it. At least I think that's what it does. As I say, I'm a self-taught cook. My mum did do a lot of cooking, but she didn't really share it with me a great deal. We were a busy family, and so I've very much gone from recipes. And this is actually based on Mary Berry's sweet short crust pastry. Can you see that's now? I'll just do that last bit. Get these last few crumbs up off the bottom. Right, there we go. Right. Pastry. I say it is quite short, but I try and keep it as short as possible because it works so much better. There we go. Right, and now that I'll just put in the fridge and then we'll roll it out in a while and I'll show you how I make the mince pies. Okay. So while the pastry is chilling in the fridge, I'm going to make my frangipane topping. You can use this frangipane topping for all sorts of things. This, I have mincemeat on the bottom, but you can put other fruit or jams. We used to have a fig tree in the garden, which I don't have anymore, unfortunately. But we used to have a fig tree in the garden, and I used to do a lovely fig frangipane where I'd make some fig jam, put that in the bottom, then put the frangipane on top, and then lay the figs in it. You could do it with any fruit, really. It's nice to have a jammy bottom, and then you can put the fruit into the frangipane. And frangipane's really easy to make. I didn't realise how easy it was until the first time I tried it, and now it's a real family favourite. So let me show you how I make the frangipane. It's back in the processor, and you don't need to clean it out after making the pastry, because the butter and bits that are left in there, flour and butter left in there, you're going to use again. So don't need to clean it out, which is always a good idea. So we're going to, we're going to start by creaming butter and caster sugar. So I've got softened butter here. It's not quite as soft as I might like, so I'm just going to stick it in the microwave for about 20-30 seconds just to give it a moment. Right, while that's just softening, let me take you through. It's caster sugar, then caster sugar and softened butter, and then we add an egg, ground almonds and almond extract. All right, so that's what gives it the lovely almondy taste, flour. Honestly, I can't find my words this morning. The lovely almondy flavour. Right, let me just get that butter. Yeah, that's softened enough now. So you don't need it melted, you just need it, like spreadable. So let me pop that in there. And then adding to that, so that you're basically creaming butter. So if you want to do this by hand, it would just be creaming the butter and the sugar together. As I say, I've already explained why I prefer to use this. So I'm going to put in now 100 grams of caster sugar. So it's equal quantity. Sugar and butter, the usual creaming mixture. Our house is quite damp, although we don't really notice it most of the time, but when you get some of the ingredients out the cupboard, you find they're clogging together, and my sugar does go lumpy. All right, there we go. So that's 100 of butter, 100 of sugar. Just going to cream that together with the processor. That's all creamed up together now, light and fluffy, much quicker than doing it by hand. Could do it with a hand, but you could easily do it with a hand whisk if you wanted to. Right, so we've got to add, now what I've got to add to that is 1 egg. This is a whole egg. And then, sorry, it's still in my cupboard. I want a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Oh, this must be, hang on a minute, that's already, I might have one that's already open. Yeah, I'll open a new one unless I have to. So a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then I want 100 grams again of the ground almonds. So it's 100, 100, 100. So if you want to build it, if you want to take it up, it wouldn't be difficult, would it, to multiply it up, double quantities or whatever. It's quite easy to make. Hang on, I just need to get Kirsty to cut the new bag. Not as organised as usual this morning, sorry. Right, 100 grams of these. Okay. And then just go whiz that together. And there we have the frangipane topping. And that I will be putting on top of the mince pies once I've put the mince in the bottom. I'll show you how I do that in a little while, okay? So that's frangipane topping for mince pies. Or anything else you fancy putting a frangipane topping on? Right, so the pastry is out of the fridge. And that's just chilled. It's been there about 20 minutes or so, I guess. And the oven is on. That's on at 180 degrees. And I've put 2 baking trays in there so they can heat up because you want the heat underneath the pies as well. I've also greased 2 pie tins. These are what are called bun tins, so they're shallow. This is a rounded based one. That's a flat based one, but they're both shallow. You don't want like a muffin pan that's too deep for mince pies. And my rolling pin, I love. It has one of these adjustable ends so that you can change the thickness and it will actually get the pastry to the thickness you want it. So I think, let me just check if I can see the disc on here. I think this one is at, oh, what does it say? I can't see it. Hang on, let me just take this right off. Let me just show you actually. Okay, that comes off in these changes. This is 1/8 of an inch, which is about right for thickness of pastry for a pie. So I tend to keep it at this thickness, but you know, if you roll out anything else that needs to be thinner or thicker, there is a thicker one than that. Right, I'm just going to cut this in half to do half at a time. I don't want to overwork it, so I don't want to be rolling it out over and over again. So that'll do for the second lot. Right, this should do for the first lot. So, a bit of flour on the worktop, bit of flour over the top and roll it out. I'm sure most of you have rolled out pastry before. I mean, obviously, if you don't want to make your own pastry, you can buy pastry as well these days. I just like making my own. I think it's so easy, and obviously, it's a lot cheaper than buying it. So you can see this is quite a crumbly pastry, so I'm going to have to treat it gently. But that will make for a really nice pie, mince pie. We get through quite a lot of mince pies in this house. Mike is a lover of mince pies. It is his all-time favourite. And so we get quite a lot of mince pies around Christmas. In fact, before Christmas. Mike's birthday's beginning of October, and he reckons that mince pie season starts on his birthday. I try to resist that as much as possible. I don't always succeed. I sometimes give in. There's always mincemeat left over in the cupboard from making mince pies anyway. So, sorry, this is breaking up a bit. I'm just going to put a bit more flour. I'm just going to leave that bit. I can cut the stars out of that bit. Go. Can you see? Once I've got it to the thickness that the rolling pin is set at, it won't actually go any further. Right, 3-inch cutter, fluted cutter. Into there. So I'm going to cut out those, put them in there. I'll do the same for the other one, and then I'll just show you how to do the mincemeat and the topping, okay? Okay, so I've rolled out the pastry and filled both my tins. I was just slightly short of what I need. I've got a 12 and an 11, but that's absolutely fine. We're not going to get through all these on Christmas Day. And I don't think we've got anyone coming before Christmas, but if we do, I will pull some of these out. Right, so the mincemeat. I don't make my own, I buy mincemeat. This is at Christmas I use the special brandy mincemeat from Aldi. Before Christmas I tend to use their ordinary one. Both are really good. As you know, I'm quite a fan of Aldi, and this is a really nice mincemeat. And I find, sorry, let's just get that. I find about half a tablespoon in each mince pie is about right, so it doesn't flood over the top. So put that in, nice heaped half tablespoon into each one. And then you can look afterwards and think, oh, does that need a little bit more? Because sometimes it doesn't all come out of the spoon. So I've got like this first one, didn't get so much out, so just add a little bit more in. So I'm going to do that with all of them. Let's just do another couple here. They do need a little bit more, I think. You just want enough to cover the bottom But so, because obviously as the mincemeat heats, it bubbles up. And if you fill them too full, they'll overflow and then they stick in the tray, and that's a nightmare. So once you put the mince, so with the star ones, once I put the mincemeat in, I've cut out my little stars from pastry. I just pop those on the top, and then I'll brush that with the egg white. With the frangipane, exactly the same with the mincemeat. That's the mincemeat in there. And then the frangipane mix, just take, that's about half a dessert spoon, and pop it on the top. And I'll do that with all of them, and then they'll go in the oven at 180 for about a quarter of an hour for the pastry top ones, maybe another 5 minutes or so for the frangipane topped. But I'll get those all done and get them in the oven, and then I'll show you when they come out, okay? I might take a photograph before they go in as well. But as I say, the main thing is I will brush the tops of the star ones with the egg white. These don't need anything added, the frangipane don't need anything else doing to them at all. Okay, so they're both lots are out of the oven now. And I leave them in the pans for about 15-20 minutes so they cool down, because otherwise you can break the pastry getting out of the tin. Just to show you the outcome, the frangipane ones are fine, but sometimes if you put a little bit too much filling in, they will spill over the edges. That's fine. When I lift them out, I'll just cut those edge bits off and I'll have a little nibble, which will be rather nice. Also, I had a couple that have just flowed out. Getting exactly the right amount of frangipane, the right amount of mincemeat is never going to be easy, but these are for the family. They're not for selling or anything like that, are they? So it's fine. And the same with the ones with the star. I just got one that's overflowed a bit. So I'm going to let those cool, and then I'll take them out and put them on the on my cake racks to cool down completely, and then store them. So I'll take a picture of them once I've got them all out, probably, and then on Christmas Day or whenever we want them, I'll just get them out and warm them, and usually we have those. So after dinner we have Christmas pudding and mince pies. Some of the family will have more Christmas pudding, some of the family will have a lot more mince pies. I'm not going to let you guess who that might be, although that certain person will probably have a lot of both with his sweet tooth. Anyway, happy Christmas. Day 2 of the baking done. Tomorrow I'll probably get onto shortbread and spiced biscuits. So look out for that one coming up next. And hope you're enjoying this. As I say, please do subscribe if you want to carry on following. Hit that little bell. Please send me any comments. If you've got any tips, I'd love to hear them. I'm not a perfect cook. I just enjoy it. And I do what I enjoy. But if you've got some tips for me, I'd love to hear them. That would be lovely. I'll see you again soon. Bye.